Hello, everybody. So, welcome back to another edition of News from the Other Side. And today, Omo Naija is in the house. I have Ghana's, is it older sibling or junior sibling? Okay, older sibling. No, junior sibling in the house. I have a teacher from, is it Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania in the house. She's a special education teacher and who also want to share her experience with you, the follower, sitting right in front of your screen. So I'm not going to take much of her time because she has another interview waiting for her. So the first question that we usually go by is your past life before you relocated to the US. What you used to do, the job you were doing, if you had some side hustles, the school you taught, the subjects you taught, anything related to your teaching occupation back home in Nigeria. So just let's hear you. You mention your name and any a bit of your family history can also help.
Okay, that's nice. My name is Courtney Uche Onyemalukwe.
Okay.
I'm a Nigerian. I'm Igbo.
Okay.
I have been working as a special education teacher in Nigeria, Abuja, for close to 10, 12 years. 10, 12 years. Before I came here, I worked as an inclusion teacher at Noble Hall. It's a school, an all girls academy in Abuja.
Okay.
A very, a very enlightening school. I worked there as an inclusion teacher before I came here. Um, I stay in Abuja, like I said. I'm the third out of four girls, and that's it.
Okay. So currently, what do you do in the US?
I teach as a special education teacher with the J1 visa. I teach in the autistic support program.
Autistic support program. And I know people might have heard of special education. Can you just brief on what actually it is? What is special education?
Well, special education is a program of services. It helps to empower students with special needs. Here in the US, I don't know if it applies across the country, but children or students are allowed to remain in school from the until the age of 21, 21, 22. So they have, once you're being assessed as to having autism or Down syndrome or intellectual disability, any form of the disability, you're being provided a set of programs that addresses your disability or your disorder. You are automatically um, you automatically have access to certain programs and certain funds in the United States. And the one that really makes me happy is the fact that they get to stay here in school till the age of 21. So you continue receiving all those services, funds, support until you're that age. And if you want to continue after the school program, all you have to do is apply, get reassessed, and then you're being provided the necessary funds or resources that you need. So
Okay.
it's very encouraging.
I believe you went to a teacher training college, or did you go straight into the university and you got
I,
educated?
I I went straight to the university.
Okay. And why would make someone like you decide to go to the special education route where there was general education? What is so unique about that? And do you have a special passion or motivation for that?
In fact, when people ask me this has been a very common question for a very long time. You know, anytime I meet people, especially back at home, the question is, how did you get to study this? Because looking at special education 10 back 15 years ago, it wasn't really something that people were interested in.
Yeah.
They had little or no idea of what it was all about. And even if they did, they didn't regard it as something that important that you had to go and study it for 4 years. So it wasn't like a college of education, but there was something we usually call the remedials. You go through it, then you write the exams they want you to write. And so I like to call it like God's calling because I didn't want that. It was part of the choice, but I didn't want it. So when I got it, I was so devastated. I was emotionally down and I didn't understand why I should be giving that, with what I had. But then I decided to give it a try, so I went into it and it kind of got interesting. Interesting in the sense that I saw myself as someone that was able to communicate, relate with students or children that nobody else could understand what was wrong with them.
Yeah.
So I kind of started feeling special. you know, I had situations where people would ask me about certain things, because they didn't know what to do. And so that was like the journey. I remember our lecturers then, we tried so hard to, you know, boycott some courses, or we didn't see the reason why we had to do some certain credits. And our lecturer then, the professor, will always say, "We are trying to give you international standard." And we were like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not worth it. We don't want to go through the whole stress." Not until
You got here.
I got here. And the requirement that was requested for, you had to have certain credits, must have done this. I'm like, oh my God. So this is what the professors and the lecturers were trying to, make us see and understand. So going through all that process and, the teaching practice, going out into the field to actually teach the kids made me realize that I'm actually in the right field, contrary to what I was thinking. So that's my own
Okay.
personal experience.
Until I go to the US when I got to hear of special education because back in Ghana, special kids are not in the mainstream classroom. But here is the case, they believe in all inclusion education over here. And in my class, I have autistic kids. I'm an art teacher.
Yeah.
And you know how art and special education are like. They're like twins, they're like
Yep.
siblings and all that.
Yep.
And these kids they want to tell me that, Mr. Aubrey, I'm going to paint today. They want
Yes.
to paint, and you
Yes.
have to
That's
give them
it.
the paint.
Yes.
And it's so nice sometimes. And I have this student who has uh, epilepsy, and all the class wants to tease her sometimes, and she's always around me,
Hmm.
and she drools a little bit. They even don't want to touch her, but she's always closer to me. And I
Yes.
never I never knew I could be so passionate about such people until I got here, and they are part of the class. Sometimes I thought epilepsy is quite uh, contagious until I came here, and her saliva could be on me. I just go for my sanitizer. I just rub my hands and all that. They are special. It's a nice thing that you're doing, and
Yes.
I've,
Thank you
I've
so
heard your salary is quite bigger than the regular teacher. Is that true?
well, I think it also depends on where you find yourself at. Um, your years of experience is important. Where I am, years of experience, and then the level. Everyone is across every level. But then, special education is very broad. Then you get to hear things like someone being a behavioral tech,
Okay.
or someone being an audiologist, or someone
Mm-hmm.
being a speech therapist, or someone doing occupational therapy. So it's quite broad. So you
Wow.
just need to, yeah, and they all have their salaries across the field, So you just need to know where you have to be very certified in anything you're doing in special education. So
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. So, what is your major? What's your specialty?
In school, I majored in hearing handicap. The ones that use the hearing aids and sign language.
Oh God.
But getting into the field, it was kind of different. I told myself, well, as at that time, students with hearing impairment were not really found in an inclusion setting. So I kind of changed according to demand. what was demanded at that time were um, professionals in the field of autism and behavioral disorders and all that. So I had to pick my trainings. I had to go online, train myself. I got the experience, and then I was needed, in those inclusive schools. So I got a certification in HH, but with my experience, I found myself in the autistic department, and I also got certification for that. So
Okay, great. All right. So, if you are just joining us, we are having a nice conversation with a special ed teacher here in the US. She also came with a J1 visa. And this is an episode from the usual series, News from the Other Side, where African teachers in the US share their experiences with you, the viewer, sitting right in front of your screen. And today, we're going to have a nice time with Miss Courtney Uche. Or is it Mrs. Uche?
it's Miss for now.
All right, so Miss Uche said it right. Now, how did you hear of the cultural exchange program?
I had initially heard about it from a colleague of mine. So I first heard about it from her, and then I heard about it from a closer sister, a friend of mine. So when I heard it from the second person, I was like, maybe this is genuine. Because when I heard about it from my colleague, I was kind of, I wasn't too sure. So in my mind, I was like, I had to be careful. Fraud is everywhere. I don't want to fall a victim. And we're talking about going international. I don't want a situation where, I get to find myself in a deep mess. So when I heard about it from the second person, and I learned that I had some other of my colleagues that were also on that J1 visa, I decided to take it serious. So that was how I heard about it.
Okay. So when you heard of it, did you also follow that cue that always wanted to travel out of Africa, or you had another motivation for coming to the US?
I've always, even before I heard about it, I've always wanted to travel out of Africa. I wanted that international experience.
Okay.
I was just very interested in knowing how special education functions out of,
Outside.
and I was just willing and ready to go for anything that would expose me to the experience. I didn't want something that would take me away, because most people would just want to leave just because they want to leave. But I just wanted to know how it was to be an international teacher in the field of special education. So I had already said trying Australia, I tried Canada, and I was in the process of Canada before I heard about this program. And that was why I decided
Okay.
to try it.
And have you met your expectations for coming?
Oh, yes, I have. And I have met my expectations, and I'm setting more expectations. It exposes you to a lot of things you never really thought existed. So it broadens your view of life, of regulations, of practices, and the fact that there's actually so much more that we could do for our kids.
I think for me, the most precious experience I've learned on this trip is patience.
Mm-hmm.
And being with special education or special kids in your class, you need all that patience. You know that I have this small folio that has documents for each student that is a special kid in my class, especially the epilepsy girl. When she goes off, I need to document the time she goes off, time she got back, any incident. So it's instilling in you some kind of patience and other traits that an international teacher always exhibits. Yeah. So I
Another
like
thing
that.
I'd like to
Mhm.
add to that, aside to patience, or like I said, I want to add to it, is also discipline. You know,
Discipline. Yeah.
the fact that you are disciplined enough to know that without anyone telling you, you
Yeah.
cannot you cannot joke with documentation.
Yeah.
Look, it's something that is so important here that I'm glad that I was able to have done that while I was back at home. I had to train myself to, oh, no one, because I was kind of leading the team, I was in charge of the unit. So back at home. So I got used to being up to date with your documentations.
Good.
Anytime they ask for this documentation, it should be provided. It was so important. So when I came over here, it was like times it by two. So I was really used to telling myself, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, because you are working with 7 documentations at the same time. And each documentation has to tally. And coming here, you have to be very, very careful as not to break or disrupt their regulations, because everything they
Yes.
ask you to do is according to a certain rule or a certain standard that when you break it, you can find yourself in court the next day. Is that paramount? It's very important. So
Yeah. So every document I have taken for each special student, they tell me it's a legal document. That's what they tell
yeah.
me always. This is a legal document, and you
Mm-hmm.
should be able to know the all the accommodations for each student, all the IEPs. You should know everything. If you mention this child's name, you should know that he has this accommodation and all
Yes.
that. It's not easy.
Yes.
It's not easy.
They say over here that the parents of children um with special needs are more legalistic. Like they are the ones that
Very,
are
very,
prone to sue.
very, very.
And the only way the district or your body can work with you or support you is when you
You
are up to
document.
date with your documentation and
Yes.
everything you have done is within their regulations. Other than that, you're on your own. They say clear. So everything you do, and they are always open to asking. Never get tired of asking. You don't know, you ask. You want to be certain, you ask. You're not sure, please ask. They're always open to that because I don't want to be at the other receiving end. The stories
Yeah.
are not too good.
Great.
So, in as much as there are so many resources and programs, they are also very particular with how you make use of those resources and the time and the programs and all
Okay.
that.
All right. So, which sponsors did you work with?
I'm under the IAG International.
IAG. And did you have a list of options where you could choose from, or you just IAG was the exact one you decided to go for?
Yes, IAG was the one. I know there are others, but I had already started with IAG, and they were going really fast. So I decided to stick to them because I was like, we're all gonna end up in the same embassy, in the same
Okay.
visa interview. So
And I'm not that surprised. I think right now the highest in demand job in terms of education is special ed.
I
So
know,
if
right?
you're out there and you have your certificate sitting in your wardrobe, sitting on your walls, you are highly needed over here. And
Yeah,
there are other pathways even after the J1 visa because special ed teachers are high of the highest demand over
true.
here. So make sure you apply not to only IH but all the other agencies I do mention on this channel. So once again, this is another episode of News from the Other Side, and we have Omo Niger in the house sharing her experience with us. If you also want to come on this show, I have displayed my phone number under the screen. You can contact me so that we have a session with you, and you also share your news from that side you are. Okay, so you started with the process. Can you tell us a little bit about the documentation, the requirement that IAG give out to you?
Okay, so before I even started the application process, I had to make sure all my documents were up to date and ready. So the first one I remember was that I you need to have a degree, a 4 years degree that is recognized internationally, is of international standard.
Yeah.
And also you need to have 2 years working experience in the same field. It doesn't, no other field is required. If you have a certification in special education, your working experience should be in special education. If you have in biology, your working experience should be in biology. That was what I noticed. And also, I needed certification. Like I said, the TRCN, that's the one for Nigeria. You need to
Okay.
be certified by them, the body. And I had already done that a year before because I understood that if I wanted to do anything international, I needed that certification. So I did that. Um, Wes was another one that I had and that I used because remember I told you I had already started other programs.
Okay.
I was applying for other programs. So I had my West ready and the police background check. That's another one I had to also keep aside. I think that's it. Then age declaration and my international passport, of course. And I think that's it.
Okay, good. So I think that is a major document that you need for this, and it runs through almost all of the agencies. And if you have all the documents that she mentioned, you can use for several agencies out there. Okay, good
And
one.
another one also that was requested was a letter of reference from your
Good,
two
good.
letter of references. It could have been from the previous workplace or
Mhm.
the current one, but it should one should be from someone above you, and the other could be from a colleague. I remember that, and also, mm, I think that's it. Okay, then, um, a verification of your current work employment. I had
Okay,
to get that as well.
okay, good. So the complaints I was having some time ago is on my Telegram page. I had lots of Nigerians over there. I had lots of other African country citizens over there, and the Nigerians were asking, "Why are Nigerians not coming on the program? What have you done?" And I said, "There are Nigerians out there. There are Nigerians out there. Have you heard of any other Nigerian apart from yourself in
Yes.
Pennsylvania? How,
Well,
how
not in Pennsylvania, but I know in other countries as well, other states
Okay,
as well.
other states. A lot of them, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, not too many, but they are there.
And in variety of subject areas, right?
Yep. But mostly special education, but also in other subject areas as well.
Okay. All right. So if you're listening to us, it's not only special education that is in demand. We have math, we have
Yes.
science, English,
Science.
and art. I know art teachers who are coming in here as Nigerians. So art, physical education, music, French, you are all needed on this program. Now let's talk about the immigration process. When do you remember when you went for your visa interview?
Yes, of course. I remember.
Tell us a little bit about that. The day and the exact happenings in that consular room.
So, on that blessed day, I thank God for that day. On that day, I had to apply for an emergency visa process, and I was able to do that because of the contracts I had signed. So I got a date. I accepted the date, and I was told to be there by 7:30, 7 or 7:30, and of course, I was there by 6:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
So it was raining, and I was
Wow.
like, "Oh my God!" Of all days for the rain. So it rained really heavy that morning. But I thank God for my mother. My mother was with me, so she drove me because I was too tense to drive. So she drove me. We went to the embassy. I got all my documentations ready. As I said, very important. Um, the process was that you make sure you stand by the gate, then they let you in, and then there are different stages before you get to see the actual person that will ask you the questions. So I got all my documents verified. I was led into the embassy. So I didn't know that it was more than one person. I thought I would just immediately stand in front of the consular officer, but you had to go like two, three processes before you get to see the actual person that will ask you the questions. So for like two times, I thought I was about to get interviewed, but I wasn't. So I was a bit confused if it was done or if we're about to start. Then they directed me to the next person and then the next person. And so I stood in front of the officer, and the first question was, "Can I have your documents?" And I said, "Sure." I was standing there, but like I said, I was there, but I wasn't there at the same time. I had to keep telling myself in my head, calm down, it's going to be all right. Calm down, you're going to be all right. Because I was hot and then I was cold. And I was hot again and then I was cold again. So I really appreciated the fact that he gave me um, a, like seconds before he would ask me the next question. And as soon as he asked me for the document, he said typing. So that gave me time to reboot. I had to calm myself down again. And then he started with the questions, and he asked me if what I was doing. I said I'm a special education teacher, and he said how many years. He asked how many years I've been teaching, and I told him I said then I had been teaching for close to 10 years, and he wanted to verify if I was actually teaching as a special education teacher, and I said yes, and I explained my experience as a special education teacher. So he wanted to find out if I had an idea of what I was going for. And I answered the J1 visa. And he said, how many years? I said, I have the first 3 years, and then I have the opportunity to apply for an extension. If approved, that would be for 2 years. And he said, okay. And so he asked me, every other question he asked was what was in the DS 119, I can remember. The form.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah, the form we had to fill. Um, it wasn't for a long time. And he asked me um, if I think if I had someone there. And I said no. That was my first time. And he said, okay, that was it.
Okay. And are you that religious?
What?
Are you that religious? Are you very religious?
Oh, I am so religious.
Okay. So, and which religion is that? Are you a Christian,
I'm a
Muslim?
Christian.
Christian. Okay. All right. So I'm asking that because do you think religion has a part to play in the consulate when you're going for your visa
I
interview?
think I think everything has a part to play. Everything has a part to play. Everything. Your emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
you need to know when to be quiet. You need
Good.
to know when and how to respond to the questions that are being asked. The knowledge about the US, of course, prayers for me, prayers, and then your ability to take whatever answers that comes your way. So
Mm-hmm.
everything plays, even your field experience too, because I was asked about that. Even that too has a very huge role to play. So put everything together. For me, putting everything together and being very genuine with your answers and rounding everything up with prayers is top notch.
Okay. Good. Good. Now you've gotten your visa. When exactly did you leave Nigeria? Do you remember when you left the
I
shores
think
of
about
Nigeria?
this same time. This is the 18th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of came late because of the visa process. And
Okay.
that's why I said for me, religion, my Christianity had a cut. I was really praying because I was like, why are they holding me back? Because when I applied for the emergency, I didn't get a response. The response didn't come in on time. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, emotional intelligence, being able to control your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and also prayer. So, it's about the same time I came to the US.
Okay, good. Now, let's talk about the aftermath of your visa acquisition. From moving from the consulate premises to your house and the enjoyment or the response from your family. How was the aura? How was the atmosphere?
Okay, so um, I'm a very emotional person. I can cry so easily. So when I came out of the embassy, like I said, my mom offered to drive me because I was too tense to drive. So she was waiting for me at the other end. I was about to break down and cry out of excitement. But I knew that if I had done that, I would have sent the wrong signal to her and every other person around her because there were so many other families, waiting outside there too. So I told myself again in my head, like, calm yourself down, don't break down, don't break down. Look, again, I was walking, I was looking up to the sky. I'm like, am I here? Did I just get this? So I walked up to her, and Nigerians, everyone was waiting. I've never met those people before, but they were waiting for the answer. They were waiting to encourage me or to congratulate me. So as soon as I said, "Oh, I got it," everyone around me gave me a
Wow,
hug.
wow,
I didn't know who they were, but they were so happy for me. And they were hugging. The hawkers
wow,
around were screaming,
wow,
congratulations!
wow, wow.
So it was very exciting. I just got to know that they were also waiting for their own, people that had also stepped in
Oh,
because
good.
it was fun. So we got into the car. I called my sisters, I called my friends, I called everyone, and everyone was so happy. Some people didn't understand what I was saying. I called my, I called my sister, and I don't think she heard what I said, but she was like, "Don't worry, everything is going to be fine. You're going to be okay." I said, "I did you hear me?" I said, "I got it. I got approved." And then she started screaming. So immediately we got into the car. Honestly, from that moment till the day I came into the US, I want to say a very big thank you to my family because I don't know whether I felt exhausted or I just, it was so, it's another thing again to know that your life was about to change. Everything was about to change. So they were the ones, the only thing I made sure by myself was the fact that I had my documentations intact. That was the only thing I was sure of. Every other thing was my family, my clothes, my food. My boyfriend was like, "You need to have this money. You need to have this in your cash at hand. You need to." I'm like, okay. And my mom was everywhere. My sisters were everywhere, and they
Wow,
really helped me because
wow.
it wasn't easy. That's another phase that no one should joke with. It wasn't easy,
Okay.
but I think.
I'm going to ask this question. Do you think getting a US visa is a miracle from where you and I are coming from?
Well, like I
It's a
said,
very difficult question. So
yeah, like I
answer for me.
said, it's both. It's both. If you do not organize yourself, if you do not prepare yourself, I don't know if you can. I don't know if that miracle can work for you because you need both ways. Even when you get your documentations up to date, it is not enough to just say you're going to go in and get it. So you need both. You need to get prepared with both. your documentation, and your prayer for a miracle. You cannot mess to me. You can't mess with. I even have a feeling that getting your documentations set and up to date is a miracle, because getting all
Yeah.
those certifications back at home, we say, is not beans. It's not a joke. There are some people that have to get that TRCN done 2 or 3 times, and some people get it as a goal. Getting your degree 4 years in Nigeria is.
I'm going to ask the question again. I didn't press the record. So, which was your port of entry when you got to the US? Which state?
I first came to after because I had to first go to Ghana. We
Mm-hmm.
first went to Ghana, then we came in through Washington D.C.
Okay.
So from there, I think it was we had to go through Chicago, either Chicago or Newark, before
Okay.
coming into Pennsylvania.
All right. And what was the experience when you got down, even at the
Well,
airport?
everything was new. Everywhere was cold. I didn't have enough sleep. I was tired. And I wasn't sure of what to eat. That was another problem I had. Deciding what to eat. I didn't want to take coffee. I didn't want to take anything sweet. And that was what you see everywhere. That was what, yeah. So I decided to hold on. A very big mistake I made because it made me sick. So maybe I should have gotten something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't. And I only ate when I was in a flight. The food they give you on a flight.
I think I also had the same problem where I actually didn't know the names of their food. So I got to McDonald's, I got to KFC, and I really didn't know what I was going to order for.
Yeah.
So I starved all my way to Egypt, and
Oh
Egypt,
no.
the saddest story. I ordered rice with tomato sauce or tomato stew. I didn't know
Of
sauce
course.
was like ketchup. So they gave me plain rice with ketchup.
Ketchup.
And what the heck is this? What is this? So it's all part of the experiences. So how did you get to arrange for accommodation even before you got down to the US?
Well, IAG, thank God for that.
Mm-hmm.
IAG makes you book for accommodation before you leave the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I had already booked for my accommodation. I can't remember, but I think I booked it even no, I booked it before I left, after the visa interview.
Yeah.
But you were supposed to make a reservation either before or after. Then they will advise you to do your hotel reservations and your flight tickets through an
Yeah.
app. They usually recommend you do that. So that was what I did. So, and they provided my transportation from the airport to the hotel. So I went there. I was so thankful for that because I was so exhausted. So as soon as I got into my hotel room, I turned off the light, checked everywhere, make sure everything was okay and safe. I pulled the curtains, had my bath, and then I slept.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this amazing and stupid question. So, in the morning at the hotel, I'm going to predict what you did first. You immediately went for the curtains, right? And you pulled. And what did you see?
You mean when I pulled it open
Yeah,
in the morning after I slept?
in the morning.
Before or after I slept? When I woke up?
When you woke up, what was the experience when you pulled the curtains to see how things are organized out there? What was the experience?
Well, for me, I was like, where is everybody? Because I did not see anybody. And I'm not joking. I was like, oh my goodness, where is everyone? Why? And I called my sister and I was, I'm not seeing anybody here. Am I sure? She's like, calm down. And then After like 10, 15 minutes or going on 20 minutes, I saw someone walking her dog by.
Okay.
That was, I'm like, oh my God. Everywhere, yes, everywhere was very neat and it was just different. The houses were different, everything was different. But the
Okay.
first thing that struck me was that I wasn't seeing anybody. And then when I eventually got to step out, another very tiny, I would say cultural shock is that they smelled different. The smell was different. It wasn't a perfume. It wasn't, it was, they were just smelling different. Not
But it
bad.
smells good.
Yeah, not bad, but it was a different smell. So I got to realize that it was the detergent that they used, the liquid detergent. Because when I decided to eventually buy, I'm like, I know this smell. This is how everyone smells. So that was another thing that, I was wondering.
Okay. All right. So how much did you pay for your apartment?
Well, different apartments, different prices. Um, the other person, another teacher on the J1 visa that came with me, had a temporary place before I eventually got to find my permanent place. And this place we're paying a week was 200, either 250. And it was
Okay.
like a building, but it was a house with everything. You didn't need to buy anything. You
Okay.
just had to move in before I now got my own place.
And your own place costed you how much?
Well, right now it costs, aside other bills, the apartment
Yeah.
itself costs 1,000.
Wow. Okay, good. I know accommodation is the most expensive thing. That it's almost 30% of our salary. So
You see, another thing, aside from us, I think reading the comments, other teachers that migrate, aside just Africans or international teachers,
mhm.
teachers that move from one state to another, they are very particular about the living expense there.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing they research into before knowing if the salary you're being offered is worth it. Because you might be offered a high salary.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So now onto transportation. When did you buy yourself a car, or how do you transport yourself to school all the time?
Well, I haven't gotten a car because I don't want to make that as part of my expense yet. So my
Good.
house is 10 minutes walk, 10 to 15 minutes walk away from school. So I
Wow.
either
Wow.
use the bus or for health reasons, I just take a walk. Especially when the sun is out. I love to take walks when the sun is out. So I wanted that, and so I stuck to it. But I intend getting my driver's license before the year runs out. But I
Oh,
really
that's
feel like
great.
I really need a car. I might want a car, but I might not need it.
So, would you actually advise people to get a car? Looking at your situation, you have no car for yourself almost a year. Had there been any downside to that,
Oh
or
yes.
you? Mhm.
Well, there's the up and the downside. The upside is you don't get to spend money in
Mhm.
that form of transportation, but the downside is your movement is just a little bit limited because the bus system here, the transport system here, it's good compared to where we're coming from. You just need to get your mobile ticket and be there on time. Sometimes it gets delayed, especially during the winter. You can't control that. Your movement is just a little bit controlled because of that. And because they have to pass through, you know, different routes. If you had your car, maybe you would have gotten to point A in 10 minutes. But because you're using the bus, it might take you 15 to 20 minutes or even more.
Yeah.
So that's where my very lovely colleagues come in. Another very important thing to know is always have, well, that's beyond your control, but I didn't know it was a prayer that I had to put that as a prayer point. But God blessed me with very good colleagues, always eager to help me out. In fact, the fact that they knew that I was coming from another country, because most of them don't know what it is to move to another country. So they're
Yeah.
always very supportive. And they keep asking me, how do you do it? How do you cope? I said it's not easy, but people like you make it more easy to move about. So they always offer to, take me go grocery shopping, or we want to hang out, or maybe sometimes people offer for carpool, pick you up on their way to work or from their home on their way to work. So things like that help
Okay.
out.
So we advise any person out there watching this to bring at least, as IAG said, $4,000 so that you can get yourself an apartment and a car, because public transport isn't that reliable over here.
Yeah.
It's not like New York and other bigger states where buses are always on time. Buses, because where I stay now is 12 minutes from my school if you drive your own car. But if you decide to commute by bus, it's going to take you like 1 hour, 30 minutes.
See,
So a car is something you can never leave behind. So bring some money and get yourself. Now let's go straight to the classroom. What your first experience in the classroom? Culture shock, the biggest one.
the cultural shock from the kids, they kind of made it easy for me. And I wasn't expecting it, because these are children with autism that have some behavioral struggles or some form of sensory struggles or the other. But they were very welcoming. But
Wow,
my first, like I said, they were amazed that I was coming from Africa, that they've always been
Africa.
hearing about. So um, when I speak, the accent was different. It was very different. So the my number one cultural shock was that I would speak, and a student will mimic what I say and how I pronounce the word. And then they would laugh, you know. So it got to a time that um, a student asked me, "Why do you say this way? It's supposed to be that way." And I had to explain that, well, I'm an African and I have my accent, and you have your own accent, which is
Accent.
fine. So you have to permit me to speak the way I speak. And it's the same way you're allowed to speak the way you speak. And then, okay, for example, pronouncing the T.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a functional math teacher and we deal with a lot of numbers. So for example, 80. I would say 80,
80.
but they
Is it
would say
80?
80. So I'm in the math thing and we're working, and I'm like 80, 80 this, 80 that. And he goes, "What? Why are you saying 80?
80.
Do you mean another number?" I'm like, "No, I mean 80. What?" And he says, "Do you mean 80?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. So this is it. I'm going to try to pronounce it in your own way, but in the situation where I get carried away and I revert back to my accent, you have to accommodate me." And he goes, "Fine." And funny enough, he starts to say, "Oh, 80 is not 80. It's not 80. It's 8." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." Don't take my own pronunciation. So this is what we had, back and forth until, well, now we spent a year, so they kind of understand. It was fun, but
And
also kind of confusing.
people back home sometimes think we are being uh, what word should I use? We are trying to impersonate their accent or something. They think we are faking.
No, no, no.
And what do you have to say about that?
If now my number one priority is for the students to understand me.
Communication.
Communication is my number one priority. So if I speak in my own accent or intonation or whatever, and they are not understanding me, that's a problem for me. Now, it's only normal for them to do the adjustment, and I also need to adjust because I'm going to have problems if my students cannot understand me. So I don't want that in my classroom. I want to support my students. I want to make them feel comfortable in my own space. So yes, I will learn some words,
Mm-hmm.
and the same way they also learn from me. I
Good.
don't think I've had any day pass by when a student is not willing to, learn how I do my own thing, or how I say it, or how I would have loved to do it. Aside the intonations and the all that, the use of vocabulary,
Yeah.
the
And
choice of
jargons.
words, yes, certain words. I was speaking with a teacher, and I said, um, well, back when I was in, this is what I said, my course mates used to do that. And she said she told herself, course mates, that
Cosmates.
course mate was the off vocabulary there for her. And she started asking herself, where is she from? So you see, I'm not even trying to mimic anyone. I'm just
Being
my
yourself.
my vocabulary automatically makes me different. So the adjustment needs to come from both sides. So
Yeah.
that lady, she said on her own, she knows that people use the word cosmates. On my own part, I know that okay, instead of cosmates, it could be this or it could be that, and working together, accommodating each other. So
Okay,
that's
good.
it.
Good. Now, let's talk a little bit about the curriculum of the U.S. educational system. As a SPED teacher, what is so unique about the U.S. SPED curriculum? Is it different from the one you had at home, or is it the same as the one you had at home?
When it gets to special education, is very broad. Usually back at home, the problem is that most schools um, are privately owned and privately run. They run it privately. So um, over here is usually the government that is also, so the government is very, very much involved in their school system, especially the special education part. So like I said, they follow rules and regulations and all that. There are certain hours that is expected of a child that has been assessed of a disability or a disorder. Certain hours that child should spend. If you're putting the child in inclusion, or is it AS, or is it life skills? There are certain hours. The problem is that back at home, they expect you to take, if you're in the inclusion part, they expect you to take certain standardized tests if you want to be useful in the society. Well, over here, because you have been assessed as to having that disability, there are certain there are tests you can be excused from that, from partaking in that test, and still be very, very valuable in your economy. You could still get a job, you could still
Yeah.
have access to certain things, certain qualifications, and all that. So, over here, if that student is exempted from taking that test, there's another kind of developed curriculum that is structured for them. It could be for functional living, being able to live independent lives. So any curriculum for those kind of students that have been exempted is for them to be able to live independently. So we have job coaches, we have reading skills, we have functional math, we have programs where they get to go into the community and work. They acquire on the job skills, and then they come back and then learn. So that's the kind of curriculum that is programmed for them.
And what about TLMs, teaching and learning materials? Is it way different from what you used to use back home?
Well, I would say this from my heart. Honestly, back at home, we, from what I see here, we really are trying. We're actually doing a very good job. Is possible that we just need one or two support, because some of the resources I see here I have already used back at home. And because of what I've been exposed to back at home, I'm able to contribute, make contributions in our learning community and say, oh, we can do this or we can do that with this. Or there are certain sites that um, you can get learning materials from, and I could just, offer my idea and it's useful. So I will really give kudos to the teachers back at home, and with the kind of teaching resources we use and all that. It really helps me, and I know it's really helping other teachers as well. We're not that bad per se, just need small modifications and we're good.
Great, great, good to know that. And now, I know every state or every district has a display of their salary schedule on their website. Can you just give us a vague estimate of how much you are being paid every month? At least I know people in Africa, when you say you teach in the US, the first thing they're going to talk about is how much are you being paid. So you may decide not to be specific. For me, I don't have my salary because it's all on our website. So if you can be a little bit factual about your salary to motivate people.
Well, you should be able to get paid between uh, $3,000 to $5,000 in a month.
Okay, good. And compare that to standard of living. Do you think it's valuable that
Well,
amount?
over here, because that's another thing I checked. Over here, where I stay, is okay. Well, depending on um other bills you have to carry on, if you're with your family or if it's just you or if you have any other thing you're paying for, but it should be able to cover up all your
Okay.
expenses and other things you want to go into.
Okay.
It's okay. It's an okay form of salary.
Great.
At
Now,
least you're sure that you're going to live in an apartment and you won't go hungry.
okay. At least for certain things like cars and modern gadgets, that really worries teachers back home. You have it over here, so I think it's quite okay, right?
Yeah,
And a good apartment and all that.
yeah.
Now, to almost the conclusion part of the interview, is it really worth it? All that hassle that you went through to come here, is it really worth
Yes, with a smile.
it?
It's so worth it. It's worth it in the sense that you get to experience teaching internationally. You get to experience life from another point of view, because I've always seen children from America as being very spoiled children. But honestly, they do go through a lot. So nowadays, when I speak, I'm very careful about how I
Yeah.
speak, because I've seen things from a different point of view. And even in my own field, in my own career, being an international teacher has put me a step or more above. It has put me in a very competitive situations. So
Okay.
it's worth it. It's anybody that's thinking about doing it, just do it. Do it. It's worth it.
Okay. And is your family okay? You said you are a mess, so I can ask that question. But so when should we expect the wedding? Because I want to come to Pennsylvania.
Anytime soon. It's just a matter of time. Right now, again, documentations and all that. There are so many things you need to put in place. But
Good.
anytime soon. Anytime
All
soon.
right. So we need to hear a final motivation from you. What are you telling teachers back in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, especially sped teachers? What do you have to tell them? What have you seen so far? What are some of the perks that should motivate them to come over?
I want to tell them that they shouldn't take their jobs for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Look, everything you do back at home prepares you for what you intend to do here.
Yeah.
I am so thankful that I did not take my job for granted because I didn't even know I was training myself. There you once you come here and you're not prepared or you're not as experienced as you should be, is a very big minus for you, because the same way we're expecting more from them is the same way they're expecting from us. They are so interested in what it is we know and how we do what it is we say we do. So keep working, keep trying, and never give up.
Good. All right. So we just had a wonderful conversation with Miss Courtney Uche, who is a sped teacher from Nigeria and currently teaching in Pennsylvania. I know she's very busy, but she actually apportioned to squeeze a little bit of her time for this interview, and we are so grateful for
Thank
that.
you.
So if you are out there and an African and you want to share your experience with my viewers, my number will be displayed on the screen. Just give me a WhatsApp or just give me a call, and we would also welcome you nicely on this program. And indeed, this is another episode from the news from the other side in Pennsylvania. Have a great stay and have a great summer, Miss Courtney. Nice to
Thank
meet
you
you.
so much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye bye.
You. Bye.
Bye.